As if they don't have too much on their plates. The Kings of Combat Sports Podcast.
Neal.
They talk about the things they did that day. They'll analyze the work of Triple H. Rewind-A-SmackDown. 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 Rewind-A-SmackDown.
And welcome to all of our free feed listeners on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. To this week's edition of Rewind-A-SmackDown. My name is Ting, and this is Neal Flanagan. Hey, Neal.
Yes, it is I. Wait, how are you?
I'm still doing well.
Still okay?
Yeah, still doing well after our news discussion on the XL edition. But just wanted to maybe draw some attention to also in the Post Wrestling Cafe, other than our XL edition podcast, this week's edition of the Wellness Policy that Jordan, Neal, and I had a chance to talk to Rob Ryder of Sad Dads Club. But also, Neal, you were on Book Club for our Double and Espresso patron members, talking about regime change inside the imperial presidency of Donald Trump.
Yeah, this was a book I highly recommend. It's got not much to do with wrestling other than Donald Trump's Hall of Famer. And 4 wrestlers do get mentioned in the body of this book at some point because Donald Trump's head of communications, a guy called Stephen Chung, is a huge wrestling fan. And they name check Dusty Rhodes, The Undertaker, Hulk Hogan, and someone else. I forget the 4 that get mentioned. But a book that had 3 years of really hard reporting going into it, double sourcing, all of that. If you're into any of this, and if you're into current events and sort of the so-called first draft of history, it's amazing. But for purely wrestling purposes as well, Backstage Pass got a mini review by John as well. And this is David Sahadi, who had an incredibly long tenure at TNA through all sorts of the various incarnations. And John goes through that book as well. So very enjoyable podcast.
And WWE, of course, for many of the great, hype intro videos to many of the pay-per-views that we grew up with. So that is
including the really famous Super Bowl ad. He was responsible for that.
That is available on the Double and Espresso tier over at our Post Wrestling Cafe. Our G1 coverage continues, of course, throughout the rest of the month here in the Post Wrestling Cafe. Also, our coverage of MCU Later, X-Men 97 also continues with Rich Fan and WH Park talking about this particular season that, from what I've seen, has been continuing to get really strong reviews. Yeah. They will be back a little bit later on in the weeks ahead talking about Spider-Man Brand New Day as well, of course. You had a chance to watch any of this X-Men season 2?
Sadly not, and I was glued to season 1. So I mean, it's definitely on the list of things I want to catch. And I dare say, once I see episode 1, I'll want to just keep watching. So
there's a lot out there. I'll get there. Yeah, including John and myself talking about Dark Side of the Ring this particular season, and also starting next week, our reviews of Unreal will be beginning in the double shot. So all of that is at postwrestlingcafe.com. Let's go over to tonight's edition of WWE SmackDown. This is taking place from the Oakland Arena in Oakland, California. WrestleTix has this at about 7,248 tickets out as of about 6 p.m. This is down from the yearly average and, down from a little bit down from the last time that they were here for what looked to be a house show, the Road to WrestleMania in February of 2024 at 7,578. So I'll say, Neal, unlike last week, they announced like 4 things ahead of time, and I'm talking at like 10 a.m. for this particular show. All right, last week they announced like nothing. I feel like until even at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. This was one where I'm like, oh, it's 10 a.m. They already had like a relatively full lineup here. Mm-hmm. So does it suggest to you perhaps like maybe a crew that maybe is a little bit more rested perhaps and could focus on this show alone versus having to focus on like so many of the other events that they had to work on over the weekend?
I think so. It felt like last weekend with Saturday night's main event at Madison Square Garden, probably having to connect an awful lot with the New York Knicks, which they flipping did they ever, for that show. And of course running Fanatics Fest, which really seemed to eat up an awful lot of their resources. They They
Not
went
to mention
all
the
in
press
on
conf,
that.
the kickoff, the SummerSlam
The
kickoff.
SummerSlam kickoff show, which furthered a couple of storylines as well. And I think that really showed on Raw this week. So at least they had a few days after Raw to regroup, decide, on some sort of lineup for tonight's SmackDown. And I think it showed.
So we start things off here with what essentially is a Gunther Aldis contract signing. Of course, this match was made official at the press conference, the kickoff at Fanatics Fest. So Pierce is here to moderate. He is also here to clarify that once Nick Aldis signs this contract, he is relinquishing his SmackDown general manager role, and Adam Pearce would assume responsibility. He also says there's a hold harmless agreement, meaning WWE holds no responsibility for what happens to Aldis here. Aldis says he knows exactly what he's signing. He says he never wanted this, but Gunther found his breaking point, and if it means relinquishing his responsibilities, so be it. So he signs it, and this seems to me, Neal, like full confirmation that we have now seen Nick Aldis move from GM to a full-time wrestler role.
I'm curious, they didn't give any timeline about the, whether or not he could revert back to being general manager after the match. So I think it's really interesting because they had their to and fro, which perhaps we'll get into. But by the end of all of it, I was left wondering, it's just so hard to see Aldis having any other result in this match than losing. And then where does that take him as an in-ring competitor?
I would say, like with everybody else, I don't think losing necessarily hurts him. I think he needs to show enough fight, to maybe impress audiences. But I also don't think it's the type of thing that would like kill him to lose at all. So
I wonder if they've done enough to build him up as a believable opponent. I mean, we did get a mention tonight for that he's a former NWA World's Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah,
but
so
sorry, go ahead, YMC.
Oh yeah. There's just a bit more in this segment that we'll get to before we get to our discussion here. So Gunther is speaking, and he has a mic that keeps getting cut, unfortunately. So Pierce happens to give him his. Gunther says that this is going to be the greatest match of your career, but this is all beneath me. And he knows why Nick Aldis has hated him ever since he signed to SmackDown, because Aldis is jealous. He mentions Aldis is a former NWA World Champion, but Aldis, he also says, never really made it. So shots at Billy Corgan and the NWA there. He says he never achieved his dream of being a WWE wrestler like Gunther has. Gunther says he's achieved it all. He's even a multi-millionaire. And he says Aldis has to admit to himself that he's just not good enough to achieve the same. So he's going to help him live his dream. He's going to make him a WWE superstar, and he's going to add him to the list of WWE greats whose careers he's ended, like Goldberg, AJ, and Cena. Aldis says Gunther is only saying all of this to get into his head. He says Gunther never expected this to get this far, and says Gunther actually wants none of this. Aldis says he hasn't had a match in 3 years, and so he has nothing to lose. Meanwhile, Gunther has everything to lose, because when he loses to Aldis, he becomes the guy who got made a bitch by his boss. And this prompts Gunther to attack. A brawl ensues, leading to Gunther low-blowing Aldis before powerbombing him through the table. So what did you think about the segment overall? And maybe continue your thought about, how they're portraying Nick Aldis here ahead of this match.
Yeah, I don't know that the mention of the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship is really enough. In this build, and we had the angle shot at the Fanatics Fest kickoff show. It was effective. They've certainly been building this a long time, but they haven't really conveyed all this as a credible opponent who could beat Gunther. But having said that, for a PLE like SummerSlam, which is over a couple of days and it's got a big card and you want a variety of different kinds of matches, it has a decent novelty value to see Aldis in the ring for the first time in a long time. I dare say he's been training pretty hard. He wears those giant suits, but he certainly looks like he's absolutely stacked, So I think it's got that going for it. I feel he loses, but I wonder how much protection he gets in the loss for more in-ring appearances. or they do have the option of him going back to the GM role. As I mentioned earlier, there was, yes, he has to relinquish his duties, but they didn't say forever. You know, maybe it was just, you know, maybe it's just
Neal, they
for
can
this
make
match.
anybody GM at any point. Like none of that matters, you know.
Yeah.
So, like, but as far as like whether or not he will go back to being a GM right after this match, I certainly didn't get the sense like watching this segment. I mean, there seemed to be a level of permanence in like, you know, Pierce's words. But of course they can always put him back in the role, you know, if this doesn't work. I think the novelty of this particular match will, for people who may have never seen Nick Aldis wrestle, like it'll be, I think, similar to, I don't know, like your celebrity match, like, or a Pat McAfee wrestling for the first time. Like you might be a little bit curious to see what happens. You know of the guy, you may have never seen him wrestle before, but you're kind of curious to see what he's going to look like, especially in there, probably going to get, you know, getting beaten up by like the toughest guy on the roster in Gunther. They've got that going for him, but they've also set up the fact that like he is somebody who has had experience at a pretty, I guess, prominent level, if you want to consider NWA, like no matter what you may think of like, you know, the NWA championship level being. So they've kind of set the stage for all this to be competent in ring, but I do think it'll be booked like, you know, probably a 90% Gunther beatdown, like most Gunther matches are. So it's just about like how much of a comeback they're going to give all this and how much the crowd will be behind it. It's like a type of booking that I think to me feels a little bit bold because like, yes, like, you know, Pat McAfee could probably get in a match like this, but like they he's a celebrity and they love their celebrities. Nick Aldis is not a celebrity. He's kind of one of their own, you know, on-screen authority figures. So to like give him not just a match, but a match on the second biggest stage of the year, I guess third biggest stage if you want to consider Rumble, like it's a little surprising, but I think this is also one of the better built feuds heading into SummerSlam so far. I think their brawls backstage have been very intense. I think Aldis is terrific on the microphone, of course.
Yeah.
And if you've seen his prior work, I don't think you would have any concern about his aptitude for this stage. He is a very capable, not just talker, but a very capable, I think, like big match type of performer. If you've seen his matches with Cody, he is, I think, going to do tremendously well, especially if the role is to mainly get beaten up by Gunther before like mounting some sort of comeback. I think the crowd will be into it. I do think there's a level of attraction and interest here that they're achieving with this Gunther match versus Gunther versus, I don't know, like a Royce Keys or something like that.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, I think that's the novelty value here, and the fact that, you know, he did say he's got nothing to lose. So I think you're going to get a really aggressive, you know, that will take some people aback, particularly those who aren't familiar with his in-ring work, because all this, he may, maybe it's the way he dresses, but he's 39, which is, you know, sometimes you don't get elevated to a match like this until you've passed the magic 40.
He's just about to enter his physical prime in the WWE universe.
This youngster, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. It is certainly a very unique pathway towards becoming a WWE like wrestler. Not many people go through the path of like being GM first before, you know, becoming an active member of the roster. But clearly he's done well enough as a personality. I certainly think he has. And clearly they are convinced enough of his in-ring ability right now to want to give him this spot. So I'm very curious to see it myself.
Yeah.
Up next, we got Sami Zayn, of course, who, does not like this match being made. Okay, he cuts a big promo to the camera outside of the doctor's room where Nick Aldis currently sits. He says the GMs and the powers that be never wanted Zayn to be champion, and that's why they made him defend it days after winning it. He sarcastically congratulates WWE Brass for getting Cody and Punk as their big marquee matchup, and even Gunther and Aldis get a match while he's just left on the bench. So this is when Pierce comes in. Sami says Aldis deserves to be in the doctor's office because he screwed him too at Saturday night's main event. Sami wants in to the SummerSlam main event and asks Pierce to turn Cody versus Punk into a triple threat. Pierce says today there's going to be a fatal four-way between the guys Punk mentioned in his promo last week, that being Trick Williams, Royce Keys, Finn Balor, and Damian Priest. And the winner of that match will go on to SummerSlam to face Sami in a number one contenders match. And of course, this being Sami Zayn, rather than being happy that he got on the SummerSlam card, his first instinct is to complain about this. He says, these four just have to be mentioned by Punk in order to get their opportunity. Meanwhile, I have to earn my way back in. So, playing the character, very sort of well in this instance.
Yeah.
And Sami reluctantly agrees, but says he wants no more shenanigans and no more funny business at SummerSlam.
I thought this was great because Sami starts off with all incredibly valid points to my mind. He's made, I've said this every week, made to defend the title just after winning it in a way that other champions are not. So, I mean, tick, that's correct, and so he outlines his grievances. I think a lot of them are valid, but then he takes it too far. He gets this tremendous opportunity he doesn't even have to compete in a multi-man match to get in to the number one contenders match. He gets his SummerSlam match, but he's not happy about that. He wanted to be in a triple threat with Punk and Cody instead. So, yeah. Just more excellent work from Sami, and glad to see him get a prominent spot at SummerSlam.
It's prominent. I also don't think he's going to be winning that match against, spoiler alert, Finn Balor, who's about to win tonight's main event at there. And so my sense is that Sami is still kind of being kept on the bubble, like he's being kept in the conversation. But I think I still feel like this is like a slow de-escalation of him from that mix. But every on-screen appearance, this guy just continues to earn more favor from the crowd. I thought he was hilarious, watching him play this role, right? So I think it's only a matter of time before the audiences want to see him back in there.
Yeah.
As long as he continues performing at this level, which why would he ever stop? Because I think he's just that good. So.
Agreed.
Then we got Lainey Reed versus Brie Bella. This is a singles match here coming off of Saturday night's main event. And Fatal Influence speak, first of all, and they just got here. They already took out two legends. They say JC Jane blames Brie and Paige for costing her ladder match qualifier last week. So she has come up with a solution, and she has said that she will be going after Tiffany Stratton's U.S. Championship. Not at SummerSlam, but in due time, she says. So you like that approach for Jane? U.S. title?
I do actually. Yeah, I think that's a decent program for her to be in the US title scene.
Agreed. So the match starts. We come back from break with Brie mounting a comeback here, and she goes up top where Jane tries to distract, and Paige stops her. Brie dives with the sunset flip, but Reed sits down and tries to grab the ropes for leverage, but the ref sees it. Brie then counters the sunset flip with her own and gets the win. So Brie pinning half the tag team champions, and to me this seems like they're maybe trying to book another tag team rematch here between Brie and Paige, or Brie and somebody else, and that somebody else may be revealed just now, because a 3-on-2 attack ensues, leading to the return of Nikki Bella coming out to make the save for her sister. So she's notably running down, so certainly that foot looks all right. Mm-hmm. She delivers the Rack Attack 2.0 and says, "I'm back, bitches." She grabs the mic and says, "You bitches think you can sneak up from the minors, steal from my sisters, and get away with it?" She challenges the three of Fatal Influence to a trios match at SummerSlam, and that is our latest addition to SummerSlam.
Yeah, another SummerSlam edition. I feel big return. Got to be said, for Nikki. I was, if there was reporting of this about to happen, I had missed it. So I was taken aback, by the fact that she seems to be in ring shape and ready to go. The match ahead of this wasn't much of a match at all. But Brie, I think, and we always talk about it, but she did what she does competently enough. So that was fine. Then the beatdown, then this. So I think this is a transitional thing. It's not a blow-away match for SummerSlam, but you've got Nikki back with Brie. So you've got the Bellas, you've got Paige. So you've got some star power on the women's division on that side. I feel like the match could well be a bit of a foregone conclusion. Are they really going to hand Nikki a loss on her first return match? don't know. I mean, they could. This could become a bit of a program between them, or some sort of combination of these three on either side.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a match for SummerSlam.
I think Nikki like could lose. You know, like here's the thing. I think like Fatal Influence right now, they should be your project. You have two of them already champions. You have JC Jane, who I think like will probably end up beating Tiffany Stratton for that US championship. Meanwhile, like, you know, like you got your three legends here who are like still valuable, but I don't think you you need to go on another like 4-month reign with them, you know, of any sort. But I do see like potential for storytelling here. In now you finally have the Bellas back together. I see them turning on Paige, and I see that feud perhaps like breaking off into its own thing. You know, Paige at this point really has no real role like attached to the two of them. I think the Bellas are better as heels. I think they, you know, might sort of recognize that. It doesn't make sense that Brie and Paige would Nikki and Brie would just go on another like resume a babyface run now that like you've already got like 4 or 5 months of it, you know, with Brie and Paige. Meanwhile, I think there's a lot more potential in like maybe Paige is a babyface and the Bellas is heels. So I'd be curious to see like how they might break off into that following either a failure at SummerSlam or maybe a failure beyond it when they might go for the tag team titles again after Brie pinned Laney here, right?
Yeah, that would be a good direction. In fact, I could see them doing it as quickly as SummerSlam. Perhaps the Bellas decide that they lose and they decide that Paige is to blame for that loss and they turn on her after the match as quickly as next weekend. I could easily see that happen now that you mention it. And a good direction for Paige as well, because what does she do now that the twins are back together?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I guess like the only question is why did Brie win this match if you're not going to build to another tag team match?
It really matters.
Matters to me. So I care deeply about this tag division. So Kathy Kelly was with Finn Balor, who Balor says he can't help but think about SummerSlam 2016 whenever he thinks about SummerSlam, and he reminds us that was also that was the best and the worst night of his career. And he says he's been scratching and clawing for the past 10 years trying to get back to the glory of that night. This is when Gunther steps in and says he doesn't care who wins. He is going to be next in line, and he remarks that 10 years has been a very long time. So Gunther getting a bit, you could say, sidetracked because of this Nick Aldis story, but still, you know, keeping his sort of presence in the mix of the title picture, along with people that are in the main event tonight. Well, Finn Balor, who ends up winning it. But your thoughts on this particular matchup and what this interaction may be teasing us with?
Yeah, I think it teases a match between these two at some stage. I liked, you know, just using the calendar to give Finn some motivation here, that it has been 10 years since, you know, we won the Universal Championship while getting injured at SummerSlam. And Gunther just coming in more or less saying, yeah, 10 years is a long time, and laughing at him. You know, the character of Gunther is just fantastic. So, yeah, I could see this program. It'll be interesting because it does it telegraph that Finn wins at SummerSlam? Perhaps it does, and I think that's what we maybe expect anyway. Yeah.
Certainly against like Sammy, I see like a more freshness with Balor. He's already kind of teased like matches with Punk and also Cody. Just doesn't really feel like, you know, it's Sammy's time to go back into those matches just now. But yeah, up next we got Royce Keys with Solo Sikoa, and Sikoa kind of gives him a pep talk. These guys are sort of you know, in a bit of a faction now that they're facing the Bloodline together. So Keys and Solo remind us that they're both sort of hometown guys here in the Bay Area. This is when LA Knight steps in. He says, "Don't lose focus on the Bloodline tonight." Roy says that he's a grown man, don't worry about me. Solo then like kind of goes on this like very charismatic roll call for the team, like he's like, you know, like he's Mark Briscoe. And LA Knight almost can't believe that this has been coming out of Solo. What do you think about Solo in this segment?
This is the most babyface I've ever seen Solo Sikoa. It's quite a hard pivot, but I enjoyed it because the guy is quite charismatic, and thank God he's been removed from the MFT faction, which was doing him absolutely no favors, or the others who are left behind who didn't feature on the show at all tonight. But I quite enjoyed this from Solo. I think it's a good direction for him. One takeaway from this segment was Solo saying, hey, it looks like you could be doing 2 nights at SummerSlam, two keys, because he's in the match with these two against the I suppose the lower guys in the bloodline. Well, Fatu aside, Fatu and the Usos, and of course that always just triggers me into why on earth couldn't Oba have done 2 nights at SummerSlam? He had this title shot from King of the Ring that he could have said, I'll use that one night and I'll take Brock the other night. But,
well, Neal, it's a Hell in a Cell, you see, okay, and that is just way too much for anybody to withstand.
Gotcha.
No, it's not. There's just no. Their explanation is whatever they want it to be, right? So yeah, no. Solo has been like, I would say almost like he's been totally changing as a character over like the past year and a half, and I feel like it's finally, now that he's a babyface, able to fully come out. Like all this time, who would have thought like within this like sort of silent enforcer within the bloodline was somebody like this guy that wanted to break out and like kind of have fun, in his promos. Like in that sense, he feels a lot closer to his dad than either of the Usos do. And I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. And for that reason, like I don't really see him going back to a heel anytime soon and rejoining the bloodline. Like I just don't think there's a fit in the bloodline for this type of Solo Sikoa, when I find him a lot more interesting, like as a babyface on his own. So that's when we go to Tiffany Stratton, Chelsea Green. A lot of talking segments on this particular show, as you would expect from SmackDown. Chelsea says when she qualifies for the tag team ladder match, she is going to join Stratton, and it's going to be Biff Foles, best friends forever in business, fighting on ladders. And so she and Stratton sort of have an exchange where, like, Stratton says, oh, remember the last ladder match we had, and like I won. And Chelsea says, well, how about I win this time? And Stratton says, well, you know what? That sounds good, but you know what sounds better? Tiffy 2 belts. So Chelsea is just kind of working really hard to try to like maybe get her share of the spotlight here. This is when Blake Monroe shows up, and she does not attack Tiffany Stratton from behind. Instead, she says she actually likes her because she looks like somebody with a better good taste, I guess.
Yeah, but just for the finer things in life or whatever. Yeah.
But tells her to worry less about Chelsea and more about this title. She says the higher you climb, the more people are looking up at what you have. How do you read into this little interaction?
Well, I think it seems to telegraph a Tiffany, that Monroe is entering the women's US title picture here. She wants that. She wants the belt.
Are you still sensing Stratton turn at any point? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I'm on the fence because I think a heel turn might work. I think any change in this sort of very vanilla, it's Tiffy time, no depth to the character would be welcome. Yeah. This version of her that we had earlier in the promo, the kind of all the girly stuff and the giggling along with Chelsea, even that is kind of just doesn't come off very well.
I don't know whether
totally insincere. I don't know whether that's because it's a new thing for her to play. But as I say, really any change to her character is welcome. I think a heel turn would be better. And in fact, when you see Way has a still of the two of them together on screen, when you see them together, I could see an alliance at some point as well here. So I think there's lots of possibilities.
That was sort of what I took out of the interaction, where it was almost Monroe. Like you could take it as Monroe warning Tiffy about herself, like, I'm coming after that championship the higher you climb. I also took it to mean like maybe potentially Monroe warning Tiffany about Chelsea going after her, and to keep your eye on Chelsea, because she will turn on you and such and such. Nonetheless, like, I mean, to me, these two, because they share such a similar character, right?
Yeah.
Like these two as a team of just like two mean girls going up against the actual crowd favorite and all of this in Chelsea Green with somebody else, I think would, to me, that feels like a much more like natural fit for everybody involved. This like Tiffany Stratton babyface push, even with Chelsea Green, I don't think like it looks so forced, and she just does not feel comfortable in this character at all. She feels on the one hand generic and also incredibly unsure of what exactly she's supposed to be.
Yeah.
She to me does not come across likable. So this SummerSlam match is going to take place in Minnesota or Minneapolis, I believe she's from that state. She'll get a good reaction there, but I don't think she'll get a better reaction than Chelsea. I don't know, man. I think even in her home state, I don't think she'll be the most cheered person in the match. Anyway, I hope they turn her heel sooner than later.
Yeah.
So then we get our first interim women's title match. Interim women's title ladder match qualifier of the evening, and it's between Chelsea Green and Kiana James. Remember Kiana James?
Oh yeah.
Yep. So
A helicopter
she's
in her entrance thing. Oh,
yeah,
we didn't see that.
She's just kind of lost in the shuffle. Now that the Julia feud, for that matter, Julia's kind of gone too. So just not their time right now, it seems.
Quite a few missing in action this week, and it's from the mid card particularly, and I think that is a symptom of the 2-hour switch.
Yeah, truly. Yep. So in this case, we've got Chelsea Green versus Kiana James. Chelsea delivers the Rough Rider, getting a 2 count. She goes for the Unprettier, but James stops her, hitting a Falcon Arrow for 2. James continues with the Fireman's Carry, but Chelsea catches her with the Unprettier for the victory. So now Chelsea joins Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill with 2 more spots left remaining. What did you think about the match?
I thought it was kind of a clumsy match. I expected it to be, and it was what I thought. I really don't like to dump on Chelsea Green, but she's not the best and the most convincing in ring. There's no like massive botches, but there's just some clumsy looking spots where the selling wasn't great and it just didn't look particularly clean or crisp. But I sort of expect that, and I think that Chelsea's more of a character than a full-on in-ring worker. That's not what she's there for. We've just discussed how popular she is, and I think that's more so her lane in WWE. So the match wasn't very good, but I'm glad that she's in the ladder match. I think because she'll get an awful lot of support from the crowd, and she'll probably get a big spot of some sort.
What endears Chelsea to the audience clearly at this point isn't her in-ring ability. It's her personality and what she does backstage. You can argue those scenes are more important like for her character than the match.
Yeah.
But I do think like being able to perform at a certain level in ring is going to be the difference maker between like how serious you get pushed. And she's in a qualified, like she's in this ladder match, but I don't even think she will. Like, I can't see her being a world title level talent yet at this level. But again, not to say like there's a great role for her. Certainly in the match, like I see her and Stratton somehow pairing off and maybe beginning a feud, like based off of the ladder match itself.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Kiana James, any thoughts on her?
Not really, because I don't know where she goes from here, to be quite honest. The last thing we need is her to go back to Julia. So, I guess she's just in the women's mid card on SmackDown.
To me, she's kind of the opposite in that, like, I think she spent like the better part of like the past year proving that she is more capable than than just being a manager. She's capable in ring. She's highly athletic. But now she's got to think about the character because she has none right now, and what character she did have, like, was pretty awful initially. Yeah. So then we go to the back with Priest and Truth for our weekly, great comedy on the show. So Truth thinks that their War Raiders match is this week, and Priest reminds them that it's next week. Truth says something to confuse Priest, and anyway, Truth says he used Priest's credit cards to pay for hot dogs. Priest gets mad because they were free. So there's that. This is when Cody Rhodes I don't
So
know.
there
Did I
is
do
that.
a terrible job to
No, I'm just laughing. I'm
recapping?
laughing because it's so bad, And Priest tells him he's in a 4-way, and Truth does the "is that PG" joke again that he does every week. Dreadful is, and it started with a did you know graphic telling us that Priest and Truth are the longest reigning tag champs on SmackDown. So I did my due diligence way. They have been champs for 127 days, 5 defenses, 3 of them were in April. I forget, who against, 1 in May and 1 in June. So, it's not exactly workhorses of the tag division.
No, they're going for that Roman streak, I think, trying to hit 1,000.
But they are on the show every week. So,
Well, what is their streak of great jokes?
oh yeah, every week.
Okay, this is when Cody walks in, and Cody tries to join in on the joking. He jokes about going for Truth's tag titles with CM Punk. And Cody tells Priest that, Truth just leaves at this. Cody tells Priest that if he's going for a championship, then, he's going to be going after Cody because Cody will be the champion. Priest says he and the boys are sick of the same guys being champion. And he says something about, that being end of story. Referencing Cody, of course. Cody says, as somebody who used to be one of the boys, I like that attitude. So kind of interesting to hear, certainly there's been some fan dissatisfaction coming off of all of these recent moves, coming off of Sami Zayn losing the championship. Some growing fan dissatisfaction about there being perhaps too many of the same names in the top mix in this company. And it was interesting to hear a character within the show say it to Cody Rhodes, and a character who's a babyface. It's not like Sami Zayn saying this. It's Damian Priest. So I do think they are acknowledging this fan dissatisfaction. They're adding some fuel to it here with Damian Priest, and possibly having Cody and Punk to somehow answer for it. What do you think of that line in particular?
Yeah, it struck me too that you've got, as you said, a babyface voicing this sort of fan sentiment that people are sick of the same people being the face of. Well, he said this brand, but you could probably extend it to the whole promotion. I think they're sowing seeds for something, and at least throwing a bone to those who feel that way. And could this be feeding into a turn of some sort for Cody? I don't know. I think we'll talk about that maybe later on with the Cody and Punk talking segment. But I just felt that it was interesting that this is even getting voiced by a character, particularly on the babyface side of things.
It is a risky line to put out there for your 2 participants of the main event of your pay-per-view, and not to say I think audiences will not react to Cody versus Punk in that main event. No. They're going to go crazy for it. But you're giving sort of support for audiences who want to shit on either of them in the main event. So I just I find it a curious act that they would put this into the show. And I'm sure it's in service of something. I hope it wasn't just a line thrown out there for nothing. But what is that something?
It feels like a very deliberate thing to have Priest say. Now, if they decide to just ditch it, no one will remember this in a few weeks. So I wouldn't hold my breath. But on the other side of things, there might be something to it.
So this is when Cody Rhodes comes out, and Cody Rhodes simply comes out, and you could very audibly hear the boos tonight. Yeah. This was certainly a mixed crowd, and him opposing Punk, who is the bigger crowd favorite pretty much everywhere on this planet. You can maybe justify it as more so that rather than any sort of people hating Cody and wanting him to be a heel. It's simply that they might like Punk more than Cody, but he does kind of discuss it in the promo, so it does kind of work to the promo that's about to happen. They show a clip prior of Cody's appearance on Jimmy Fallon where he does talk about the Punk belt flip from Saturday night's main event. And then Rhodes introduces CM Punk. Rhodes is about to hand Punk his microphone, but he drops it, and he claims it was an accident. Punk then becomes like very hesitant to pick it up. He instead goes to the PA on the outside to pick up a new mic. He takes his jacket off and says it's a shame that they're at this point, because now he's so paranoid about Cody, he can't drop down or turn his back on his friend because he's afraid of getting attacked. Cody says it was just an accident, just like he knows how Saturday night's main event, and I'm assuming he's referring to the belt flip, was also an accident. Cody says he needs to win not just for that championship, but for himself. Cody says people know that he respects and even loves Punk, but he also doesn't like Punk, and he says those things can be true at the same time. He brings up the 2011 pipe bomb, and Cody says he listened to that promo and it inspired him, and he ended up following that promo to a T. He went out and he did all of the things, Punk said. Punk dropped the pipe bomb, but Cody dropped a nuke on the business. Cody says he knew from the bottom of his heart when he was doing all of that, though, that all the fans wished it was Punk doing it instead. Cody says, referencing the apology he made to Damian Priest in the back, says he's done apologizing for what he's worked for. He says he deserves to be the face of the brand. He deserves the calls to Fallon. He says he deserves to be on a list of one that he's on. Cody says he does not sweat anybody on the roster, but he does sweat Punk. Cody says even though he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder, meaning championship, he hears the crowd chant for Punk when he comes out, and all of a sudden he does have a chip on his shoulder, and it weighs the same as that title. So bars from Cody here, playing with some metaphors here. For his story to have a proper ending, Cody has to beat Punk at SummerSlam. So Punk retorts, do you hate me or do you just hate that I'm a champion? I cast a shadow that you and many others cannot get out from. He says, good for you for paying attention to my pipe bomb promo, but did you do it better and bigger than I did? That's for history to decide. In 2022, he says, I was learning from you because I realized from watching you that there was a way back here. I followed that path and we've been chasing each other ever since. Punk says Cody, though, is lying to himself. He says he can't handle the pressure, and instead he makes himself the victim and makes everybody else his enemy. He says if Owens and Orton are your enemies, then I'm your only friend, and I'm not going to stab you in the back. I'm going to stab you in the front. He says I'm going to break your heart at SummerSlam. Cody says they have a bunch of tag matches together coming up on house shows. So like a rare reference of like, I guess, house show matches being canon here. So he says they're tagging together with Thursday being their last tag match in Springfield. He says he's going to, at the end of the match on Thursday, give him the main event gift. But it's an apology for when he whips his ass at SummerSlam. Like, is he referencing a literal gift or just the fact that like what? Like,
yeah, Cody seemed to be saying that he would give him the traditional gift. I suppose this must be something that the,
wrestlers do.
Wrestlers do at the end of a loop, as they call their little tours. I'm not at all sure, but that's how I took it. Because Punk then, as you said, retorts, "Well, I'll give you it. My gift to you will be the loss at SummerSlam."
Listen, there's a lot of like inside baseball type of discussion here. That might have even lost me, but
me too. But that I'm only like inferring from what he said.
Okay. Punk says he also got him a gift, and it's an ass whooping at SummerSlam. He says nobody can touch me, not even Dusty's kid. And as Punk leaves, Cult of Personality hits, but Cody cuts it off. Instead, Cody says, play Kingdom because it's the music you will hear when you stare at the lights and I become champ for the fourth time. I have no idea what the audience online feels about the segment, but I'm most curious to hear how you felt about it, Neal.
Well, there was some very deep lore in all of this, with Cody talking about how he followed the blueprint laid down by Punk by the pipe bomb to go off and do his own thing. And, all of this is references to AEW, of course, for those who aren't, without them actually saying so. Punk references 2022, which is, of course, when Cody returned in April to WWE. And by the way, Punk was still with AEW at this point. This is, in fact, long before all in 2023 when all the shit happened. So, there's that. My issue with this was more to do with believability of how they got to this point, because these are two characters who have built a reputation as sort of like grown up guys, who know the business inside out, and they know what's what, and they've managed somehow to get so paranoid about one another, from being clipped in the face by the belt to a microphone being dropped to by the end of this promo having to have real heat. And I know that creative needed to get there, and I'm sure this felt like a really good idea, but it felt a little unbelievable to me that these two characters would be so thin-skinned and so unable to see past their ego that by the end of this segment, they seem to really hate each other, and this is where they've gotten to. So, like, for me, a great A for effort for all of the lore that they put into it and all of the rest of it, but I find it hard to buy from these characters unless one or other of them is ready for the heel turn that should follow logically. And I don't know that they're ready to pull that trigger on either of these guys.
I don't think so, but I do think, like, certainly, like, in this particular segment, and I would say across like most towns, Cody is going to be the one who's not as much of a fan favorite for audiences. And I think, like, Cody was playing into that, and that made Cody really interesting in the segment. Like, I like the segment overall, but I really like Cody's more than Punk's retort, because Cody, I think, had a lot of like juice for heel energy. He had juice and explained very clearly his reasons for being bitter at CM Punk. He is the guy who did everything Punk said in the pipe bomb, yet he knows everybody still wanted CM Punk to do it instead of Cody, and that, I'm sure, like, more than eats away at him, realistically, but certainly in a character perspective. That is great motivation for Cody to want to hate CM Punk, and I thought Cody put it out there really well. I would have wanted Punk to maybe answer that a bit more directly. Like, Punk, I think, to me, like, bringing up like 2022 and how, like, instead of Cody looking up to Punk, it was Punk looking up to Cody. That I thought was like a nice way to kind of like, take things full circle. But I don't know. I thought by the end of it, I felt like it kind of got lost from like the thread that, like, Cody sort of started things with. The stuff about the gift, like, to me, kind of unclear and therefore unnecessary, and maybe tripped up the promo a little bit. And then by the end of it, like, by doing the whole song thing, like stopping the song, playing the song, like, Cody didn't seem to have like a great reason for actually stopping the song and giving us, like, Kingdom instead. Like, all he said was just sort of a generic, you're going to be looking up at the lights and listening to this music, so listen to my music. I mean,
he seemed to freak out a bit because,
Dusty's son.
The Dusty's son was the mic drop kind of line from Punk. I mean, I agree with you largely, where it's just, I feel like, and they're both wonderful talkers, and they did a really good job for the most part in this. But it's just the Cody character is supposed to be really honorable, the leader. He says himself, the guy that his door gets knocked, he doesn't have to knock on the doors anymore. But some of that kind of leans into heel territory, and I just wish they'd maybe go harder with that.
Yeah,
because
totally.
Otherwise it sort of feels like this is a very temporary kind of change of character for Cody, just for this one feud.
Yeah. Cody is the Boy Scout who does everything he's told. He does everything that the teacher tells him to do perfectly. He
even thanks Triple H and Nick Khan toward the beginning of this.
He works perfectly. He does everything that he's told. He does everything, according to the book, by the book, to get to your successful quarterback position. But no matter what he does, he can't compete with the audience's love of this guy who does none of that stuff, or at least, previously did none of that stuff, and yet it finds himself in a position that, Cody will never find himself in. And I think, like, there's just, to me, there's so much interesting, story to be mined from that dynamic that I think Cody started, like, dangling, but I don't think Punk managed to, like, carry through. And, in the time that they have, like, they got one more week, I wonder if they'll, like, kind of get that deep into it all. But, like, at least at the start of the promo, I was really interested to see where they were going to go with it. All right. So So that is our segment. Overall, I still thought a very strong segment in terms of delivery, like excellent from both men. And I got the sense from like, especially on the Punk side of things, like maybe a lot of it improvised. It felt like loose in a certain way. And again, delivery is great, but I wonder if like it could have used a little bit of fine tuning just to kind of like get them on the same page narratively at moments. But still, overall, I think a very strong segment.
Yeah. Not to keep banging the drum about this segment, but yeah, I agree with you that in what you said about it's sort of lost its way a little bit. It meandered a little bit. I think it was a couple of minutes, perhaps too long, and I feel that's where it began to lose me because I started to overthink. Perhaps, hang on, why would Cody? Cody wouldn't normally say something like this. So yeah, if they'd kept it a little tighter, I think it would have been all the better for that. But of course, tremendous delivery by both guys, as you'd expect.
Up next, our next match is for the interim, or a qualifying match for the interim WWE Women's Championship ladder match. It is Nia Jax versus Charlotte. So first, we get an interview with Charlotte with Kathy, and Charlotte basically says, I don't give a shit about this interim title. Like, I just want in this match so I can beat Jade because she injured Alexa Bliss. So that was kind of interesting. She, of course, feels really bad for Alexa getting hurt, and again, she just wants to beat Nia tonight just to get at Jade at SummerSlam. So as a reminder, last week, we had Nia Jax face Jade Cargill in one of these matches, and Charlotte came in to interrupt the match, causing a DQ, which prompted Nia to complain, and she got this rematch instead with Charlotte. So Charlotte stops at Annihilator, delivers a powerbomb to Jax for a 2 count. Jade and the baddies come down. Meechin and B-Fab try to attack Charlotte, but Flair is able to avoid them all. At this point, it's basically a 4-on-1 with Jade and Nia jumping in. Jade just straight up delivers a forearm, and we have another DQ finish here. So Nia complains again that she's been screwed, and Jade continues to be attached to Charlotte. We see the Jade delivered to Charlotte, and that means Charlotte, Jade, Stratton, and Chelsea are in the match with one spot remaining. Nia still complaining out there.
Yeah. The match was quite good until all of the interference started. I feel like from a logic point of view, we went over the fact that Charlotte doesn't really care about the ladder match. She only cared about getting revenge on Jade for what she did to Alexa Bliss, and that explains what happened last week nicely. Doesn't really explain this from Jade, who hands somebody she hates a spot in the match at SummerSlam by a completely blatant shot in the middle of the ring in front of the referee, therefore handing Charlotte the DQ win. That sort of feels a bit dumb.
Well, she knows Charlotte doesn't care about this ladder match anyway, so to her, like, putting her in this ladder match is of no prize to Charlotte, okay? None of them care about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
Charlotte's
I can only explain that by this is me trying to justify the booking here, but I think it's just like these two hate each other so much they're going to attack each other at any opportunity regardless of the outcome. That's, I think, all we're supposed to take from it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I guess. So these two will probably cancel each other out. I mean, this was the singles match I thought we were going to get at SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, it seems to be interactions between the two of them inside a ladder match. So that's that. Then we got our main event. Finn Balor, Royce Keys, and Trick Williams taking on Damian Priest here in, all four of them facing each other in a 4-way to determine Sami Zayn's opponent at SummerSlam. The winner of that match will receive a title shot at some point. So so Keys, I guess, trying to, fight for double duty. And I don't know if it surprised you, and I don't know if like you were caught up or not, but I was not caught up, and therefore I didn't get the commercial breaks, and it seemed like they showed everybody's entrance except Royce Keys.
Yeah, he was already in the ring after a break. Priest came out, there was a break, and then Finn was on his way after the break, and with Keys already there, because Trick was last out.
So it only surprised me because if there's any place for Royce Keys to get a strong reaction upon walkout, you would think would be in his home area.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought like tonight's entrance for Keys might have at least been somewhat important to showcase, especially if you're going to show 3 of the 4 anyway. But I guess they just went with star power. And to be quite honest, like I don't think he's got that much of a louder reaction in this match than typical. Like I don't know how about you, Neal.
No, there was a bigger reaction for talking about California and that part of California backstage, from the crowd watching on a screen than anything anything that happened in front of them.
Are you concerned about like Royce Keys at this point, like, or do you think he's following like maybe an expected trajectory?
I am a little concerned. I think that those we were great supporters of those early vignettes before his formal introduction, where he's in East Palo Alto and talking about his childhood and all of that. That came across very well. Was it good enough though for sports entertaining people once he's out with his music and all of that? I'm not so sure. His reactions have been less than stellar. I wouldn't write him off by any means, and they certainly see him as a project. And there's time, but I would have liked, for his sake, to have seen a bit more progression in the crowd's investment in him by now. But
Yeah,
particularly tonight.
His booking as a babyface, I don't think there's like any reason to not expect that it would work. Like, I mean, the way they must have really been impressed by like his Stephanie McMahon interview, for instance, where like like talking about his like rough past, like it's endearing and it's captivating for people to listen to, but trying to turn that into like his character, clearly it's not connected enough for audiences to see him as a big star. And I wonder if if instead they gave him like the typical monster route, booked him as like SmackDown's like answer to Obafemi or something, of that mold. I wonder if that ultimately would have worked out better for him. So anyway, so that is Royce Keys in this match. He's here, and surprisingly, so we got Finn Balor and Damian Priest with the stare down early on, and Keys stops them. Balor then delivers a dive, which prompts Solo Sikoa to come out. After the commercial, we got the Usos and then LA Knight, and then everybody brawls with each other, so they kind of take themselves out of the match. Becomes a bit of a fair match again. Priest decides to dive onto all of them. Royce Keys hits the TUSB, the ultimate spine buster, which they are committed to making a thing, the TUSB. But Jacob Fatu then comes in, taking Keys away from the victory. Fatu does get a great reaction here. He sends Keys out with a hip attack through the barricade, so Keys is done. Balor then avoids the South of Heaven in the ring. He sling blades Damian Priest, then delivers the drop kick and the coup de grace. Finn Balor gets the victory, so it's Balor versus Zayn at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty good match, and I managed to see most of it because I had caught up at this point. So I think viewers on commercial TV will have had at least 2 4-minute breaks during this, which broke it up quite a bit. But haven't seen the whole thing. An entertaining, well done 4-way match. The result was what I expected it to be. I felt, this could be Finn versus Sami at SummerSlam, isn't it? And that's what we get. And a good enough opportunity to sort of keep the build going for the Bloodline versus the, I don't know what we're calling LA Knight Solo and on the other side, but a decent enough finish to the show. I feel like the biggest segment of the show was probably Punk and Cody.
Certainly.
For most people.
Yeah.
But as a main event, it was, entertaining enough. There was no real in-ring, if you're a work rate person, you didn't get that this week.
There's no Fraxium match.
No Fraxium match. There was no Ray Phoenix defending his AAA title. We didn't get anything like that this week.
No, in exchange for that, you had a lot of talking on the show, and again, I don't think that's always a bad thing. Ideally, you have a mix of everything. Somebody who, like an important talking segment with a great storyline, along with like an amazing match. 2 out of the 3, I guess you got here. And but this did feel like a relevant show in that like you had a big Cody Punk segment. You had further build for this ladder match, of course. Gunther and Aldis had a really big segment where like you finally got your promo exchange from Nick Aldis. So all of that like I thought worked really well. Aldis Gunther especially, and let's go through the SummerSlam card so far. Right now we've got 12 matches. By the way, after the show, this was an online exclusive here. Baron Corbin attacks Trick Williams, and Trick Williams ends up challenging Baron Corbin to a match at SummerSlam. So we are at a total of 12 matches so far. They include Io versus Liv for the Women's World Championship, Oba versus Brock for Hell in a Cell, Roman versus Seth for the World Championship, Penta versus Gable for the IC title, Punk and Cody for the WWE Championship, Knight, Solo, and Keys versus the Bloodline, the interim women's title ladder match between Jade, Chelsea, Stratton, Charlotte, with one. Am I forgetting somebody else?
Stratton, Cargill, Green, Flair.
Yeah, one more spot.
One more
remaining.
spot.
5 people.
TBD. Yeah.
Might be Nia. You know, she's certainly has enough reason to complain
Sure.
about it. Gunther versus Aldis, Danhausen versus Dom, Sammy versus Balor in a #1 contenders match. We got just added on the show as well. Fatal Influence versus the Bella Twins and Paige. And then Trick Williams versus Baron Corbin. So that puts us at 12, presumably 12 per six per night. Seems like a full card. Do you expect any cards? Do you expect any more to be added?
I think for the larger ones, 6 seems to be the number. It's often 5 for SummerSlam. 6 per night sounds about right, unless there's going to be something very quick, that a squash match of some sort. That feels like a full card at this point. Of course, they haven't allocated nights for these matches yet.
They should soon. Like now that you have the full card, like we're heading like a week out. You know, I think it would be a nice little gesture to just tell people where these matches are heading.
Agreed. I half expected that to happen tonight because they did have a segment where they ran down the card so far, but it still had the sort of Saturday and Sunday little graphics down at the bottom, so they didn't seem to have pigeonholed them at all yet.
What do you think? How do you think the card looks, just as a total thing with 12 matches?
I think it looks solid. I mean, there's some stuff there I'm not super interested in. The 5-way ladder match for the interim WWE Women's. I mean, that could be entertaining enough.
I like it. I honestly like they could have done Rhea versus I don't know one of these names. But the fact that it's a ladder match makes it a bit more interesting to me. By the way, is it Julia and Lash Legend in that tag match or in the final qualifier? Julia Lash Legend.
If it is, I missed them announcing it on the show.
Okay, another online exclusive here.
Okay.
Yeah, Julia to face Lash Legend in ladder match. Okay, so wait a second. They're facing each other. I'll read upon this off air, but it seems like the winner of that match will enter this. So it'll either be Julia or Lash Legend. So sorry, Nia Jax. Better luck next year. Ladder matches. Okay. So they're just in a ladder match qualifier next week. Okay. All right. Listen. I think having a ladder match like sort of just adds, a level of spectacle to the nights that I welcome. I would assume that would be on a show opposite of Hell in a Cell, which is the spectacle on the other side of the card. I think Sammy and Balor like is a strong addition when we're strictly talking about like a in ring. I feel less so that way about Bella Twins and Paige versus Fatal Influence.
Me too. That's the one that sticks out at me as being possibly a.
But I think a turn coming at the end of that from the Bellas against Paige might sort of like make that one, will justify the stage for that one. Punk and Cody, like no matter maybe how like I don't know dissatisfied audiences may be, I think that's a really strong main event, and I think the crowd will be electric. Reigns and Rollins, I'm a little less sold on,
Me
but
too. And that ought to be a really big match, but I don't know. It's just not caught my imagination.
I wonder if they like put that as a elsewhere on the card and let Oba and Lesnar main event instead, because that certainly feels like the more anticipated match. Liv and Neal, I think just okay. You expect the match probably to be better than what their last one was. I'm not that maybe excited by it. And then the rest of the show is like strong undercard matches. Penta and Gable should be very strong. Gunther and Aldis has my interest.
Me too. I think there's novelty to that, especially just seeing Nick Aldis wrestle after all this time.
Yeah. And trickle in Baron Corbin, of course.
Well, of course, yeah. But I mean, did they really have to make that a digital announcement? That just feels weird, for all these weeks of build-up.
Yeah, I wonder if they just didn't. No, it might have just got cut. Okay, so those are our thoughts on SmackDown and the build-up to WWE SummerSlam. Neal, no feedback, so why don't we wrap the show up here, because we have a big weekend coming up here.
We do.
With AEW Redemption happening on Sunday. John and I will be back probably, right after the pay-per-view ends. It's a 7 p.m. start time, 6 p.m. start for the buy-in, I believe. So we shall probably join you a little bit earlier. So tune into postwrestling.com youtube.com/postwrestling. Sign up with the notification bells and all that shit, and you can join us then.
Subscribe, and comment.
Collision Course will be happening on Saturday in the Post Wrestling Cafe with Kate and Jay Lacey. Go Home Jay, the Go Home Show, always featuring Jay Lacey. So they'll be talking about the latest additions to AEW Redemption. And then on Sunday at some point, you will get WH Park and Eric Marcotte talking about the latest G1 nights, those being 6 and 7. So all of that at the Post Wrestling Cafe. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you very much, Neal, for being here.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.